Ever get that creepy feeling that something's just not quite right in your house?
Oh, yeah.
Like a tiny noise in the attic, or maybe like a weird smell that you just can't quite place. It could be you have an unexpected guest.
Yeah.
One of the furry, scaled, or feathered variety.
Right.
And that's where today's deep dive takes us.
Okay.
Into the world of unseen wildlife damage and the crucial role of inspections.
Interesting.
We've got some articles, we've got blog posts, even some customer testimonials about Ontario Wildlife Removal, Inc. And to help us understand all of it, we are joined by an expert in wildlife management.
What people often don't realize is that the damage is often done long before they even know there's an animal in their home.
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jared Houliston. He is the guy behind Ontario Wildlife Removal, Inc. With over 20 years of experience, he's kind of a legend in the field.
He really is. What's interesting about Jared's approach is that it's not just about removing the animal. It's about understanding why they were there in the first place. And that's where inspections come in.
Okay, so tell me more about these inspections. What exactly are we looking for?
Think of it like a detective investigating a crime scene.
Okay.
They're looking for clues, droppings, gnaw marks, nests, even subtle changes in the structure of your house that could indicate an animal is trying to get in.
So it's not just about seeing the animal itself.
Right.
It's about noticing the signs that they leave behind.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing these signs can be pretty easy to miss if you don't know what to look for.
Exactly. That's why having a trained professional like Jared come in can be so valuable. They know exactly what to look for, and they can spot things that the average homeowner would never notice.
So you're saying a simple inspection could save homeowners a lot of trouble down the line.
Absolutely. It's about catching those problems early before they turn into major headaches or expensive repairs.
And speaking of problems, Jared's company seems to handle a pretty wide range of critters. I mean, we're talking everything from mice to bats to raccoons, right?
You name it, they've probably dealt with it. And you might be surprised to learn that even a small creature like a bat can cause significant damage to your home if they're not detected early on.
That's a good point. We tend to think of bigger animals like raccoons as the main culprits.
Right?
But even something small can wreak havoc if it gets into the wrong places.
Exactly. They can get into insulation, they can chew on wires, and they can even contaminate your attic with their droppings. It's not something you want to ignore.
Definitely not. So let's say Jared does an inspection and finds evidence of an animal.
Yeah.
What happens next?
That's where his removal expertise comes in. But it's not just about trapping and removing the animal.
Okay.
Jared's company focuses on what's called exclusion services.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but what exactly does exclusion mean in this context?
Think of it like sealing your home's entry points, making it a fortress against unwanted critters.
Right.
They identify how the animal is getting in and then seal those areas up using durable materials that can withstand even the most determined critter.
So it's a two-pronged approach. Remove the existing problem and then prevent future problems from happening.
Exactly. And this is where Jared's experience really shines. He understands the behavior of these animals and knows how to outsmart them.
I bet that takes a lot of knowledge and skill. I mean, animals are pretty resourceful when it comes to finding a way into a warm, dry space.
That's true, but Jared's got years of experience under his belt, and he's always learning new techniques and staying up to date on the latest advancements in the field.
So he's not just relying on old methods, he's constantly evolving his approach.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But tell me, what kind of guarantee can homeowners expect when they hire Jared's company? Because let's be honest, nobody wants to go through the hassle of removing an animal only to have it come right back.
That's where Jared's confidence in his work really stands out. He offers a 5 to 10-year guarantee on his services.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement. It shows he's not just in it for a quick fix. He's truly committed to solving the problem for the long haul. But what exactly does that guarantee cover? I mean, how can he be so sure those animals won't find a way back in?
It covers both the removal and the exclusion work. So if an animal does manage to get back in, within that time frame, Jared will come back and address the issue free of charge. It's about giving homeowners peace of mind.
That peace of mind must be priceless. I mean, nobody wants to be constantly worrying about whether a raccoon is going to tear through their roof or a family of squirrels is going to take up residence in their attic.
Exactly. And it's not just about the damage, it's also about the potential health risks. Some animals can carry diseases that can be harmful to humans.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. So it's really about protecting your home and your family's well-being. But what about those situations where the animal's already inside? How do they handle those tricky removals?
Well, that depends on the animal and the situation, but Jared's team is trained to use humane methods. They might use one-way doors that allow the animal to exit but not re-enter, or they might set traps that capture the animal safely without harming it.
I imagine those removals can be pretty challenging. I wouldn't want to be the one facing off against a cornered raccoon.
It definitely takes a certain level of expertise, but Jared's team has the experience and the equipment to handle it safely and effectively.
So they're not just animal enthusiasts, they're highly trained professionals. That makes me feel a lot better. But let's go back to those inspections for a minute. What are some of the telltale signs that might indicate you need to call in an expert?
One of the most common signs is droppings. Different animals have different types of droppings, so a trained eye can often tell you what kind of critter you're dealing with just by looking at what they've left behind.
Okay, that's a little gross, but also fascinating. It's like they're leaving their signature behind.
Exactly. And another telltale sign is noise. Animals moving around in your attic or walls can make all sorts of sounds. Scratching, scurrying, even vocalizations. If you're hearing things go bump in the night, it's probably a good time to call Jared.
That makes sense. I guess it's about paying attention to those little changes in your home, those things that just seem a bit off.
You're right. Sometimes it's not even about what you hear, but what you smell. Animals can leave behind a distinctive musky odor, especially if they've been using a certain area as a den or what's called a latrine.
A latrine, what's that?
It's basically their bathroom area, not the kind of aroma you want in your living space.
Definitely not. It's starting to feel a little itchy just thinking about it. But seriously, it sounds like these inspections are really all about peace of mind.
They are. It's about having that assurance that your home is safe and protected from unwanted guests.
And it's about catching those problems early on before they have a chance to escalate.
Precisely. A small investment in an inspection now could save you a lot of headaches and money in the long run.
So it's kind of like getting your car serviced regularly. It's preventative maintenance for your home.
That's a great analogy. And just like you wouldn't wait for your car to break down before taking it to the mechanic, you shouldn't wait for a major wildlife problem to develop before calling in a specialist like Jared.
That makes perfect sense. But let's be honest, not everyone can afford to hire a wildlife specialist for a full inspection. What are some things people can do on their own to at least reduce their risk?
That's a great question. And there are definitely things you can do yourself to make your home less appealing to wildlife. It's all about removing those tempting invitations.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of invitations are we talking about?
Well, one of the biggest things is food sources. Make sure your garbage is securely stored in cans with tight-fitting lids. Don't leave pet food out overnight. And if you have fruit trees, clean up any fallen fruit promptly. Basically, don't make it easy for critters to find a free meal in your yard.
So we're closing down the all-you-can-eat buffet for the local wildlife.
Exactly. And another important step is to seal up any potential entry points. Check around your foundation for cracks or gaps. Make sure your vents are screened and keep trees and shrubs trimmed back from your roof line.
So we're trying to make our homes less welcoming, less like a cozy den for critters.
Right. You want to send the message that your home is not the place to be if they're looking for a free meal and a comfortable bed.
This is great advice. I'm starting to think about my own home in a whole new light.
It's amazing what a little awareness can do.
It really is. But what about those situations where, despite our best efforts, an animal does manage to get in? Is there anything we can do to encourage them to leave on their own? Or do we always need to call in a professional?
That's a really good question, and it depends on the situation. Sometimes you can encourage an animal to leave on its own by making the environment less appealing. For example, if you have a bat in your attic, you could try opening a window at night and shining a light outside.
So we're creating an escape route and making the outside world look more inviting. That's clever.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that some animals can be more persistent than others. And if you're dealing with a larger animal, like a raccoon or a skunk, it's always best to err on the side of caution and call in a professional.
That makes sense. I wouldn't want to try to evict a skunk from my basement on my own.
It's probably a good call. And speaking of skunks, they're actually one of the most common animals that Jared's company deals with.
Really? I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
I always think of raccoons as being the biggest nuisance.
Raccoons are definitely up there, but skunks can be just as problematic. They love to dig under porches and sheds, and their spray can be a real nightmare to deal with.
Okay, I'm definitely not messing with a skunk. I'll leave that to the professionals. But you mentioned that Jared's company handles a wide range of animals. Are there any particular species that are more challenging to remove than others?
That's an interesting question. I think it's safe to say that each animal presents its own unique challenges. Squirrels, for example, are incredibly agile climbers and can be difficult to trap. Bats are often found in large colonies, which can make removal more complex. And raccoons, well, they're just plain clever. They're known for their problem-solving skills and can sometimes figure out how to bypass traps or barriers.
It sounds like you need to be one step ahead of these creatures.
Exactly. You've got to think like an animal to outsmart them, and that's where experience really comes into play.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the secret lives of these animals and learning how to coexist with them in a safe and humane way. But I have to ask, what about those cases where there's a real safety concern? Like, what if you encounter a potentially rabid animal?
That's a really important question and one that deserves a careful response.
Okay, I can already tell this is where things get a little more intense. I'm ready for it.
Well, first of all, it's important to understand that not all wildlife encounters are dangerous. Most animals are more afraid of us than we are of them and will typically try to avoid contact.
That's reassuring to hear. But I'm guessing there are exceptions to that rule.
Of course, there are certain situations where caution is absolutely warranted. For example, if you encounter an animal that's acting unusually aggressive, disoriented, or unafraid of humans, that could be a sign of illness.
Okay, so red flags are aggression, confusion, and a lack of fear. Got it. What should you do if you see an animal exhibiting those behaviors?
The most important thing is to stay calm and avoid approaching the animal.
Right.
Keep a safe distance
Okay.
and try to slowly back away. If the animal seems to be following you or behaving aggressively,
Yeah.
make loud noises or throw something in its direction
Okay.
to try to scare it off.
So basically, try to deter it without putting yourself in danger.
Exactly. Your goal is to create distance without escalating the situation. And it's crucial to remember that you should never try to capture or handle a wild animal yourself, especially if it's exhibiting unusual behavior.
That's a good reminder. I think sometimes people's instincts are to try to help, but in this case, the best thing to do is call for professional help.
Absolutely. If you encounter a potentially sick or dangerous animal, contact your local animal control or wildlife removal service immediately. They have the training and equipment to handle the situation safely.
So it's about knowing your limits and recognizing when it's time to call in the experts.
Right.
Which brings us back to Jared. He seems to have a real knack for handling these situations.
He does. What's really impressive is his commitment to humane practices. He understands that these animals are just trying to survive, and he treats them with respect, even when they're causing problems for homeowners.
That's something I really appreciate about his approach. It's not about punishing the animals. It's about finding solutions that work for both humans and wildlife.
Exactly. And he goes above and beyond to ensure the animals are treated ethically. There's a story on his website about how he helped relocate a mother raccoon and her babies after they were removed from a home. He made sure the family stayed together, which is so heartwarming.
That's a great example of how Jared prioritizes the well-being of the animals. It's clear that he's not just in it for the business. He genuinely cares about these creatures.
Absolutely. And that compassion really sets him apart. It's not just about getting the job done. It's about doing it the right way.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about the importance of wildlife inspections.
Me too.
And the crucial role they play in protecting our homes and our families.
It's easy to overlook these issues until they become major problems.
Right.
But a little prevention can go a long way.
Man, and it's so reassuring to know that there are professionals like Jared out there who are dedicated to solving these problems safely and humanely.
Absolutely. If you're ever facing a wildlife issue, don't hesitate to reach out to an expert. They can provide the guidance and support you need to get your home back to a peaceful and critter-free state.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into the world of wildlife removal and the importance of inspections. We've learned so much about the signs to look for, the value of prevention, and the importance of working with a humane and knowledgeable professional like Jared Houliston. So to our listeners, remember, knowledge is power. When it comes to wildlife, it's always better to be proactive than reactive. Take a walk around your property, keep an eye out for those telltale signs, and if you have any concerns, don't hesitate to contact Ontario Wildlife Removal, Inc. You can find their contact information on their website or just give Jared a call directly at 226-802-9453. And stay tuned for more deep dives into fascinating topics that affect our lives.